Yeah, no, this was actually a moment in time. I sent you the clip where I gained a lot of respect for Ben Shapiro because, I mean, oftentimes what happens is your candidate comes out and gives a speech, and then your job is to justify why everything they said makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So Biden comes out and makes a speech, and you got to go, he's our guy because we're the Young Turks. And so Trump makes a speech, and he says, you know, we've already won, in my opinion, or something to that nature. And if they say otherwise, it's voter fraud. He like goes a little bit further than you would hope that someone would go.
He's insinuating that the votes were going to show up at 4 a.m., which is like, wait a second, are you saying we need to stop counting at 4 a.m.? You're saying, of course we need to stop voting at 4 a.m. because that's tomorrow.
No, and he went too far. And then all the other people on the Daily Wire are coming up with reasons why what he said is justifiable. And Ben Shapiro's in a room full of conservatives, and he's a conservative, and he goes, this is insane. I literally just shit on the Pennsylvania Attorney General for 3 hours for saying this exact thing about Pennsylvania in reverse. I cannot sit here and justify Trump saying it. And then he argued with 6 of his peers in a room where no one was applauding him for doing this. And I was like, wow, I might disagree with him, but he's sticking to his principles. His principles were, you can't declare Pennsylvania until every vote is counted. And his principle is you can't declare these other states until every vote is counted, whether it works for him or against him.
And he also said you cannot declare fraud before evidence of fraud is found.
Yes.
Like and what he said, Trump could have said something like, if there is fraud, we will pursue it to the fullest extent of the law, and we will combat it in court. And there may have been, and we'll be looking into it, which would have been fine. But he was very strongly intimating that the fraud had occurred without sufficient evidence.
Yeah. No, and I was just, and to your point of these places are just echo chambers where you try to fit in. He said, I'm positive that my fans might not like this. I'm absolutely positive the 5 people in this room aren't going to like it because they all just said the opposite. But I'm going to take a stand for where my principles lie. And that's the first time I'd seen him do something like that. And I immediately liked him more for it.
Yeah. Well, I think beyond being liked more, what I realized there is that you're actually, as a human being, if you think the way that evolution has hardwired us, there's some things that are so obvious as to be undeniable. Like, you know, if there's a lightning strikes and it blows open a crater and somebody's like, I didn't see that. Most people are going to be like, I can't deny that just happened, right? It's right in front of my face. So there's obviously some connection with an external world that our senses are bringing to us, and we will stand out of the social group.
Sure.
But with anything vague or amorphous, all of our systems seem to be more interested in alignment with our social group, because that's actually more important for survival than what one might say. And again, I'm presuming an objective morale world, which sometimes we discuss, but it seems more important to align with a group than it does to have an accurate understanding of the world for one's survival, such that, you know, yes, your God is definitely real, and I definitely agree, and we should definitely wear that garment or cut off that piece of our body or kill those heathens. Like you are just obviously better off fitting in with the group based on what I watched. And that's just clearly the same thing is occurring with me in my own life, because I'm not immune from evolutionary forces. So I was trying to be aware of that, because the advantage is when you're the contrarian who is interested in the world, then you're Warren Buffett, or you know what I mean? Then you're the guy who just watches everybody bail, and you're like, no. You are basing your decisions on more fundamental things that will withstand the test of a time, as compared to the opinion of a room, which will move and sway and in all different directions. So I've been trying to think about the ways in which I say things to fit in that I oughtn't say.
Any come to mind?
Well, one of we've talked about this in the past, that my world understanding apparatus is I have too much confidence in my ability to say what's going on in the world based on the fact that I have the internet constantly telling me that I know what's going on in the world. Meaning, let's take the polls as a for instance. When I made my prediction that Biden would win more narrowly than the polls, I was basing that on, I'm seeing more Trump sentiment than in the real world than I am online, even in California. And I was really just pulling anecdotally, asking people like, did you vote for Trump last time? No. Are you this time? Yes, but don't tell anyone. You know? And then I was reading 538 say, the shy Trump voter doesn't exist. You know, like our polls can't find it. And I was moved by that. And
even though you had found a shy Trump voter.
even though I'd found one, I was like, okay, like that's anecdotal and that's statistical. But what it made me realize is that there's a lot of motivated statistical reasoning going on out there in order to control my perception, and lazy polling and lazy things. So I have too much confidence in things that I hear on the internet. And I actually am going to move back more towards anecdotal evidence as a weighted a bit more heavily in my way that I understand the world, even though I fully acknowledge that independent, unbiased statistics would be a superior way of knowing the world.
Yeah, but you're saying what we saw was that they're hard to come by.
Yes, and there's no skin in the game for so many of these pollsters. Like, did 538 get less traffic than they did when they got the last one wrong? And yes, you can win with 5 or 10% chance. That happens in gambling. They predicted in 2016 that Trump would have a 5 to 10% chance of winning, and he did. He crushed in the Electoral College, to be clear, but they didn't seem to lose any credibility based on that. And I was still there, and it made me realize that they don't have a tremendous amount of skin in the game. Like, they're not liable to loss, and there's no one holding a gun to their head saying, where is this going to go? And I think if there was, you'd see more accurate polling coming from these polling people, better models coming from the modelers, and fewer surprises than we are seeing right now. So yeah, anything with numbers, and people in our audience might not like this, but it's numbers that I cannot dig into and understand where they come from that are touted as just universal knowns.
Irrefutable.
Yeah, well, like everyone knows it, I mean, like all the experts are saying. And I hate to say it, the one that I came up with right away was climate change, which this is not me saying that I disbelieve climate change. It is me saying that follows that same format of, it's a bunch of numbers that I have not dove into to understand where they come from, who's doing it, what kind of motivated reasoning might be being behind it. The primary argument that I hear is the argument from authority. All the scientists say so. And there's large monetary incentives and social incentives to fall in line. Meaning, if you're a scientist and you disagree, I can very well see that you could be excommunicated from your group or not welcome in this thing. So I have amended my stance of climate change to don't know and haven't looked into it, and could look into it and move either way. But I'm curious, do any others come to mind that follow that pattern?
I believe them because experts say that they're the case.
Your confidence, if you reflect on it, is based on the precision of numbers offered to you from the internet. You know what I mean? Like the power pose thing, Amy Cuddy. What we've seen is a 23% rise in testosterone when people, 23. You know what I mean? Like the fake precision without having really dug into the methods that they used to get that. I can give you some from my own life.
Okay.
I was an analyst at a consulting company, and I can tell you that the numbers that I came up with were really faulty, but they then formed the foundational bedrock of these 100-page reports that were sent to the Navy about how to do their budgeting, which they most of the time never even used. They were just using us to cover their ass for a decision that they'd already made. But it's a bunch of 23-year-old interns conducting these polling calls, you know what I mean? With like different inflections and not following the script, and with maybe an accent that tips the person off that, oh crap, I can't say I'm voting for Trump, or I can't say I'm voting for Biden because I can tell that this person is from an area of the country that they're not going to like that.
Well, I'm just thinking that's, to some degree, that's everything.
It's everything. It's everything outside.
Why? Like, I only believe birth control. I know why condoms work. It catches my semen. But like, why do I think the birth control pill works?
Fair.
Literally, it just says it's 99% effective.
And you have some anecdotal experience.
Well, why do I think coronavirus?
Corona's a great example.
Is a thing. Like, I haven't met anyone personally. My friend actually just got it. He sent me a text. But like, why do I think there are deaths there at all? I don't know anyone personally who died. Well, because people are telling me that there's 200,000 people have died from corona. It's like, okay, why do I think that the world is round? I've never personally run an experiment that says the world is round. So like, if I'm going to ignore everything that I haven't done myself, I will become agnostic to everything.
I think that's
including like if birth control is functional or not.
Well, I think you can tentatively go with the majority. You know what I mean? You can tentatively be like, look, I haven't heard anybody dispute this. And that's another thing is, unfortunately, I'm advantaging the ability for bad actors to muddy the waters. Because I've never heard an argument, for instance, that birth control is not that effective. I also happen to have a ton of anecdotal evidence that it is. And I don't just mean myself, I mean friends. And, I don't know anybody who has gotten anyone pregnant with proper use of birth control. I mean, like the
Sure we do.
Do we?
What about Henry's friend?
Oh God.
She was taking birth control.
There's a lot.
She said she was taking birth control.
There's several of those.
What are
to
you
be
saying?
fair, there's a lot of whoops, I forgot examples.
No, how could this have happened? I never missed a day.
But that's a good one. And coronavirus, I do think falls into that where. And then you have to add into it that there's a tremendous amount of social pressure to conform to what authority says. Now, I'm not saying that I'm out there protesting, walking into stores without a mask, because then there's, of course, the calculation of like, what does this cost me on either side? Like maybe this isn't
Well, it's not, it's not federal authority. I think it's local authority. Because I think there's probably pressure to not wear masks in
where we
certain
live,
cultures there's pressure to wear a mask in cultures in the US that say that coronavirus is deadly. I'm pretty confident there's also places where you'll be belittled for wearing a mask in a place that has decided that it's not a big deal.
Sure.
So I don't think it's just what the federal authority says. You know what I'm saying? I think it's what's your community saying about the coronavirus.
And the other thing,
that's the pressure to conform.
And I could be wrong. I
immediately lose all our ad money, by the way, by having this conversation.
Well, I do treat some statistics as within that range of law. I don't trust numbers. It's not any number. It's some I have greater faith in. But of course, I mean, even then, there's been such what counts as a coronavirus death now, is a big problem. Like, well, it's 1,000 a day. Well, is that 1,000 people that wouldn't have died in a week because they had stage 4 cancer? And it'd be like, and coronavirus sped that up by 7 days. The point here is not that I'm just going to take, and I've said this before, less certain positions on a lot of things that are outside my eyes and ears and my ability to go to primary sources and really deeply understand the data. Hope that you guys enjoyed that clip. If you want to see more like this and have us do more podcasts, we are 100% funded by our generous patrons. And if you'd like to contribute, there's a link in the description, and we'll have one pop up on the screen right here so that we can do more podcasts where we have fun conversations and hopefully some deep ones like this. Either way, hope that you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.